So let's go on to the second presentation from Mrs. Nono Sekhoto. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. You can all just call me Nono. That's much easier. That's what I go by. I'm going to share experiences of what it is that I'm actually doing in the generations and creating opportunities for young entrepreneurs in the agricultural space. Over the last couple of years, the last 6 years, I've been engaged in being a farmer. And obviously, we've been reading up on the industry, trying to understand a little bit more of how it is that we can participate. I looked at this insert that I've put up a few months ago, and in my mind, I thought, time bomb. Oh my goodness, that sounds quite hectic. How is it that I will look back in the years that I've spent as a youth and have been part of this time bomb? So my goal is to ensure that I look back and we change that to not being a time bomb, but rather to exploring those opportunities. Just to give you a few background of why it is I believe I am here, and just to share a few of my experiences. My background is actually in agriculture. Is in finance. So I wasn't really going to be a farmer. It was very interesting that I landed an opportunity in 2011 to join my father, who bought a farm in the Free State of South Africa, to be able to become a farmer and work with him. For me, this opened up a lot more opportunities than I could have actually ever imagined to what I was doing before, which was sitting in a bank in front of a computer and bored as hell, excuse my language. So just showing you a few opportunities that I got in terms of just being part of the agricultural sector. It has opened up so many things to me. But the issue that I realized is that I actually landed here by accident. I did not plan to be a farmer. Nobody told me about these opportunities before. And if you come to my country, you'll realize that I even attended a very good school. So I'm one of the very privileged in our countries, yet I still was not able to be exposed to such opportunities before actually entering the sector. Just giving you a few background as well in terms of just showing you the exposure. I mean, how many of us have actually met the president in our country? And the only reason is because I am a farmer. Not because I did finance before as my degree, it's because I'm a farmer. We all understand the capacity that agriculture has to develop our continent, and so it is important for us to ensure that our youth also understands the gravity of this importance. Just to give you another context about our country. If you know South Africa's got a very well agriculture system. It's robust, it's well developed, and we compete amongst one of the best agriculturists in the world. And this obviously presents a huge opportunity for us youth to get into it. But that's not the picture that you get. If you come to our country, you realize that youth are not really interested in agriculture. They don't see the opportunities because they're well hidden. They're hidden away from people that look like me, young, black, and, well, I think going to the top. That's because currently the industry is really focused on, it's owned and controlled by a white minority who have had access over the generations of years to develop this industry. So it's very hard for young black youth to get into the industry and actually thrive. So South Africa has actually made an important, they've made important policies that they've put in place. And because we've been talking about policy, I believe that our country has the right policies in place. The issue is, how do we implement them? So people like myself have taken it upon themselves to understand the policies and actually try and see how it is that we can use them to actually drive the opportunities that exist in the sector. The National Development Plan, for instance, it aims to increase productivity in the country, thereby increasing job opportunities, and it also has identified agriculture as one of the main industries that can actually generate a lot of jobs in our country. And there's a bias towards women and youth. So how is it that I will not be able to benefit from such a policy? There's another policy, which is the Black Economic Empowerment Policy. This kind of forces big businesses in our country, which are mostly owned by white community, to actually shift their focus to assisting SMMEs. And in my sector, that will be for smallholder farmers. So how is it? So it's important to understand that in agriculture, this development will be directed towards smallholder farmers. So it can be in the form of training, in the form of skills development, access to soft loans and finance, mentorship, anything that they could qualify as support, and especially inclusion into the supplier development chain. And there's also a scorecard that the businesses will get in order to actually promote this. So there's incentives for big businesses, for them to actually make this happen. And there's a bias, like I said earlier on, towards youth and women. If you develop youth-owned and women-owned businesses, your points are higher. And so that's obviously more incentive for business to get in. Furthering on the opportunities within the agriculture sector, there's another policy with regards to the land reform policy, which provides access to land for previously disadvantaged communities such as myself. So we did not have an opportunity to have land before. The government buys the farms and lands and gives it to black farmers. So you provided access based on whether you're a community or whether, like myself, I'm a farmer. So I'll have a long-term lease, or if I've got access to funding, I could actually go partner with the government to be able to access the land to buy it and hold it in our capacity. So because you can see that there's a lot of policy that is directed to this assistance, the issue, though, with regards to land reform, it has resulted in a lot of issues that have not been solved. And currently, we are trying to find ways to make them, to actually solve these issues. And some of the issues that have cropped up are things like, the farms that were working are transferred to people who did not have skills before. So, of course, that farm will not thrive going forward. There's also inappropriate and insufficient farmer support for the new farmers, as well as a large number of productive farms have now become vacant and actually are not being utilized. So a large number of new farmers are actually incapable of participating in the sector meaningfully. So the opportunities that I identified, though, in this whole spectrum is that a large number of the youth who live on such farms are actually interested to stay on those farms. And I know that because, as I said, I'm a farmer, and over the last couple of years, as I sit on the African Farmers Association of South Africa, I've been able to put together a platform, for instance, on Facebook, and every time we travel across the country for various interactions, and I am bombarded by a number of young farmers just waiting for assistance. So they actually are on farms. There's a lot of, they've access to water, access to land, but yet there's no proper support to be able for them to continue. So they want to stay on these lands, and this is the opportunities that I've identified. So it was important for me to understand, how do we help these young farmers? I'm one too, and I've got farm, and just to give you an interesting thing is that the needs of farmers are, young farmers are, pretty basic. You're talking about income. They want to have basic services. They want to have some farmer support. They want to be successful. They want to actually participate in contributing incomes to their families. They've got the right attitude. They are willing to learn. And most importantly, which is very different to our previously smallholder farmer, these guys are excited. They are hardworking, as well as literate. Most of them have actually, like myself, I have a degree from, I've studied. So the level of my understanding in terms of creating business is a lot higher than your previously disadvantaged smallholder farmers. And on top of that, they're tech savvy. So everyone has a cell phone, everyone has access to internet, as we've heard earlier on. But their challenges still remain the same as the previous farmers. They have no access to proper skills for their technical skills. Access to finance is an issue. Finding ways to collaborate with other farmers because obviously of disparity of where they live. Access to markets. So all those things still exist. They still need to be solved. And they also have access to water. They have access to land. I mean, how is it that you don't support a farmer that has access to those things? a lot of their farms are also well capacitated because there were actually existing farms that had been developed over the years. They have access to labor, and obviously there's people around that can help them, as well as internet. So I believe that we have a good support structure to be able to assist these young farmers. Just a few pictures of the farmers I've connected with over the years. So the opportunities identified through FAFSA is that we have the farmers who sit as under FAFSA as FAFSA members. And because I sit on a FAFSA board on a volunteer basis, I have obviously had to find ways how can I incentivize myself to actually stay motivated for this task. And I developed the business called Grow Shoot. And Grow Shoot literally is the work that we do is we try to identify a commodity which a few farmers actually work with. And then we identify relevant stakeholders within that commodities so that we can create programs that will allow the farmers to work a little bit better and efficiently. So that will be access to finance, access to training, access to markets, mentorship, as well as mechanization. So it's important for them, the young farmers to actually have the full spectrum of services and support to be able to function properly as farmers. So this just also shows that each farmer will have their own commodity that they work with, but we'll all work together as a unit on a cooperative model to be able to access all the supports. The 3 examples that we're working with right now is we've identified a rabbit farming project. I have access to markets, finance, as you can see, the whole spectrum, we're ready to go. I'm telling you, the biggest issue is still access to finance. And without that, you can't go anywhere. This project has taken me, this is my 3rd year. 2015 is when we got together and found all the stakeholders. And only this year will I be able to hopefully get the rest of the funding that I require to get this up and going. So the issue isn't getting stakeholders around for support. The issue is, if I had a blank check tomorrow, I would have started this in 2015. But because I'm youth and we still need to walk around and actually, shout and tell people how serious we are about what we're trying to do, it's going to take a lot longer to connect the farmers who are actually delivering to urban markets with regards to such structures. The next project we're working on as well is planting potatoes. Similar structure, access to funding, and as I said, what's important is the first step we do is to actually get hold of relevant stakeholders who will be able to connect us to the rest of the support. And lastly, this is a different kind of program that we've set up. It's in connection with Standard Bank. They're interested to start funding smallholder farmers. So I found a funder who's interested, but the issue is they don't know how. How do we facilitate programs that will allow them to understand how it is they're supposed to fund us? And so we've built together we've identified 50 farmers that we'll be putting together through a conference. And through that conference, we'll be able to interview a few that we have chosen to be able to see how do we support those specifically in terms of different interventions, whether they need access to markets, access to training, to ensure that they have the full spectrum when we put together business plans that will be able to give them access to funding. So in conclusion, I think it's important to take in consideration that if you want the youth to participate, it's important to allow the youth to be the voice to tell you how it is they want to participate. Because most of the time, they kind of know what's going to work for them. But it's also very important to understand that we can't do it alone, and we need relevant stakeholders who will be able to come with us on such a journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your expose. Donc, nous venons dans...
So we have just heard the presentation from Ms. Sekhoto, and she used her experience, what she has experienced, to engage in an empirical analysis. She shared with us the windows of opportunity for agriculture in South Africa, both from a quantitative and a qualitative standpoint. She also outlined the policies that have been implemented in order to give value to agricultural potential. But in doing so, she also pointed out the strong points and the weak points. The strong points included access to land and control over water. The weak points, however, include the issue of financing and access to the market. And given that assessment, she also outlined prospects relating to making agriculture more professional and a need for better ownership and a better financial oversight. This, in short, is what I can gather from the statement.